Welcome back to the channel. A shocking death in an opulent household leaves everyone baffled. Was it an accident or something far more sinister? As secrets unravel, hidden tensions and mysterious habits come to light. One young detective must navigate a web of clues, strange behaviors, and unexplained events to uncover the truth. What really happened that fateful night? Step inside and follow the investigation where every detail could be the key to solving the puzzle. On Christmas morning, December 25th, the quiet household expected only routine. Instead, a grim discovery awaited Septimus Tonks. Lifeless, found slumped beside his beloved wireless radio set. Emily Parks, the underhouse maid, arrived with her usual tools, mop duster and sweeper. She imagined nothing unusual yet. Within moments, she would stumble into terror and shock. She opened the study door. Darkness pressed heavily against her. At that instant, a sudden voice emerged from the radio. "Good morning, everybody, and a Merry Christmas." The cultured voice startled her. Emily screamed briefly, then caught herself realizing the set had been left on overnight. Perhaps her master had simply forgotten to switch it off. She pulled the curtains wide, letting in the dim, colorless London dawn. Light revealed dust motes drifting like spirits. Then she switched on the lamp, trembling faintly. There sat Septimus, stiff and silent body, tilted forward in his armchair. His expensive wireless, custom-built to his exact liking, hummed faintly in the gloom. His posture was strange. Hands clutched the ledge beneath the knob's chest, pressed against the cabinet shelf. His bald head leaned heavily on the radio's polished panel. Emily whispered nervously, "Beg pardon, sir." No reply. The radio continued its program voice, announcing a festive service. But Tonks sat still as if spellbound. Her fear deepened. Her master adored the radio, but never at this hour. Why sit here dressed in a dinner jacket in utter stillness? Suddenly, the broadcast filled with jubilant bells clamoring and echoing through the room. Emily's dread burst forth. Her mouth opened wide and she screamed uncontrollably. The sound carried through the halls. Chase the butler arrived first. Flabby and pale, but authoritative, he demanded an explanation, then froze, seeing Septimus unmoving in the chair. Chase bent closer, staring into the master's face. He recoiled with an oath, unable to disguise his alarm. "My God," he cried, voice cracking with dread. Turning harshly on Emily, he barked, "Shut your mouth!" The vulgarity betrayed his agitation. He grabbed her shoulders roughly, shoving her toward the door with shaking hands. At that moment, Mr. Hyssop, the secretary, appeared in a dressing gown, face lined with confusion. "Good heavens, Chase, what does this noise mean?" he asked. Before Chase could answer, the bells clashed louder, drowning Hyssop's words. Emily shrieked again. The house seemed to thrum with chaos, fear rippling through every sound. Chase clamped his clammy hand over Emily's mouth. "In the study, sir," he muttered to Hyssop. Then to her, "Silence, girl, or suffer for it." Emily bolted away, fleeing down the hall. The staff gathered around her, frightened and whispering. The house no longer felt safe, but heavy with dread. Chase returned to the study, locking the door behind him. He and Hyssop faced the silent body of Septimus Tonks, still bent unnaturally forward. Hyssop whispered, voice trembling, "But he's dead." His words cracked the fragile quiet. Chase's eyes narrowed, rasped. "Look at his face, man. Do you doubt death when you see it?" Hesitantly, Hyssop reached a delicate hand towards the bent head, then recoiled in fright. Chase, less cautious, gripped a rigid wrist, lifting it, and the body tipped backward. The corpse toppled stiffly like a wooden figure, lifeless joints unyielding. One dangling hand struck Chase across the cheek, and he cursed, recoiling in horror. The air grew heavy. The clamor of bells faded, replaced by silence so thick it pressed against their ears. Death lingered unshakable in that locked room. There lay Septimus' body, grotesque knees, bent awkwardly, hands suspended stiffly in the air. His dreadful face tilted upward or exposed fully beneath the cold, pitiless light above. Chase's trembling finger pointed. The right hand bore strange marks, 2 fingers, and the thumb charred and blackened faintly as if touched by hidden flame. Ding! Dong! Dang! Ding! The bells thundered again, brazen and merciless. Mr. Hyssop cried out desperately, "For God's sake, stop those bells!" Chase lunged, flipping the wall switch. The house fell into sudden silence, but not peace. A rattle echoed door handle, shaking violently. Outside came Guy Tonks's anxious voice, sharp with alarm. "Here's Mr. Hislop, Chase. What's the matter in there?" Chase steadied himself, voice strained. "Just a moment, Mr. Guy." His eyes turned toward Hyssop, signaling gravely. "You go, sir." Reluctantly, Hyssop obeyed. It fell to him to break the dreadful news. The family gathered, listening in horror to his faltering, stammering words. Silence engulfed the household, a silence of disbelief. Not until Guy, eldest of the Tonks children, stepped into the study did practical sense break the spell. "What has killed him?" Guy demanded sharply. Hyssop fumbled, stuttering. "It's extraordinary." Guy studied the corpse grimly. "He looks as though he'd been galvanized, charged with lightning itself." "We must send for a doctor," Hyssop whispered timidly. Guy nodded. "Of course. Will you, Mr. Hyssop? Dr. Meadows." Obediently, Hyssop went to summon the physician. Dr. Meadows lived across the square, a brisk man of science. Within minutes, he arrived carrying with him the authority of knowledge and clinical detachment. He entered the study, leaned over the corpse without moving it. His questions came quickly directed first to Chase, then Hyssop. Their answers tangled, overlapping in nervous detail. Chase grew heated, gesturing wildly toward the burned hand. "Electrocution plain as day, sir." "My cousin, struck by lightning, looked the same. I knew it the moment I saw." "Yes, yes," said Dr. Meadows curtly. "You've made it clear. The burns are visible enough. Electrocution indeed. There will have to be an inquest." The word struck like a bell. Inquest. Chase fell silent. Meadows summoned Emily and soon faced the rest of the Tonks family gathered anxiously in the drawing room. They huddled around a cold grate. Philippa knelt, struggling to coax a fire. Their mother sat pale and silent while Arthur and Guy stood stiffly nearby. Arthur blurted, "What was it?" Meadows answered plainly. "Looks like electric shock." Then more quietly to Guy, "A word, please." To Philippa, "Care for your mother, child." Philippa nodded, obedient but trembling. "Coffee with a dash of brandy." "Where are those maids?" Meadows urged. He beckoned Guy into another room, his tone growing heavier. Alone, he told Guy the unavoidable truth: the police must be called. Guy's face drained of color. "The police? Why, what have they to do here?" Meadows sighed. "I cannot sign a certificate under these circumstances. Electrocution? Impossible without explanation. They must be informed. Nothing sinister, perhaps, but procedure is procedure." Guy whispered bitterly, "That's ghastly. For God's sake, couldn't you? No, Meadows, cut him off. I cannot." "Don't press me, boy. My duty is clear," Guy faltered, clinging to denial. "Can't we wait? Look again, you haven't examined him properly?" Meadows snapped, "I dare not move him." "Compose yourself. Think of your family." Then Meadows softened, almost conspiratorial. "I have a friend in the CID, Detective Chief Inspector Roderick Elaine. He's stern, but he'll make matters easier." Thus, fate was sealed. A message was sent, and so it came about that Inspector Elaine's Christmas Day would be spent in grim investigation. He arrived promptly, duty already calling him. With his air of cold courtesy, he entered accompanied by Inspector Fox, broad and thick-set, and the divisional police surgeon. Dr. Meadows led them into the study. Elaine approached the lifeless Septimus Tonks, his keen eyes scanning every detail. His voice, calm yet probing, broke silence. Was he like this when first found? Meadows explained swiftly. No, he was leaning forward, hands on the cabinet, likely slumped, propped by chair arms and wooden ledge. Chase the butler admitted he moved the body slightly. He claimed he only wished to raise the stiff arm, but rigor mortis was already set. Elaine pressed against the rigid neck, forcing the corpse forward. The body collapsed into its first unnatural position. The room grew even colder, silence thickening around them. See that, Curtis, Elaine muttered to the divisional surgeon. He nodded, then instructed Fox to summon the photographer. 4 rapid clicks captured the disturbing scene forever. Elaine carefully traced chalk around hands and feet, sketching the room's plan. Then he turned to the doctors, his voice low, probing for certainty. "Electrocution," Elaine asked. Curtis studied the burns. "It appears so. Only a post-mortem will confirm it. But these fingers scorched together align exactly with those metal knobs." Inspector Fox, breaking his silence, spoke grimly. "You mean death by radio?" Meadows frowned, skeptical, yet the evidence before them left little comfort or denial possible. Elaine explained softly, "He died with hands on those controls." It was still humming when the maid entered. Chase switched it off without harm. "Your turn, Fox," Elaine ordered. Fox crouched at the wall switch, warned by Elaine. "Careful." But Fox smirked. Rubber soles, and he clicked the power alive. The radio roared, suddenly loud, and sinister vibrations filling the chamber like a living thing. Fox yanked the plug sharply, his face dark with unease. "I'd like to see inside this cursed box," Fox muttered. Elaine agreed. "And you shall. But first, the body must be moved from this place." With grim effort, Meadows, Hyssop, and Curtis carried the distorted corpse downstairs into another room. The task was ghastly, leaving Meadows pale and shaken. Returning, he found Detective Sergeant Bailey already working with meticulous care, dusting the cabinet for fingerprints. Meadows frowned. Looking for meddling hands, Inspector Elaine only raised an eyebrow. "Not just his," Elaine replied. "Maybe another's?" Bailey confirmed prints were present on the chair arm. "Likely the deceased," he said. "We'll verify in time." Fox gloved, removed the radio's knob. Bailey's torch revealed flawless workmanship. He unscrewed the back, lifting the interior carefully. Then something curious caught Elaine's sharp eyes. "There, look," Elaine whispered. A tiny hole drilled above the knob, scarcely visible. Shift the torch. A needle-thin beam of light pierced through, unnerving them all. Bailey blinked. "Strange, sir. I don't understand its purpose." Elaine removed the tuning knob, revealing another identical hole. His tone was grave. 2 holes. Recently made. Very deliberate. Fox muttered, "That's no accident? Unnatural." Meadows' impatient snapped. "What are you implying? I've done my duty." "Why chase shadows?" Elaine's gaze stayed calm, almost unsettling. "Attend to your grieving relatives," Elaine said softly. "I will handle this room." Then, with quiet intensity, he asked, "Tell me who truly was Septimus Tonks." He was not a pleasant man. In fact, most would call him unbearable. "Tell me more," insisted Elaine. Dr. Meadows sighed, lit a cigarette, and began. He explained that Septimus was self-made, built his fortune alone, and hardened by it. His manners were coarse, rather than refined, biting, rather than charming, tough, instead of graceful. "Don't interrupt," he added, leaning forward. "I knew him for over 25 years. His wife, Isabel, had once been our neighbor in Dorset long ago. I helped deliver their children into this sorrowful world," Meadows continued. And indeed, their household often lived in shadows. Many years were burdened with heavy tension. For 10 years, Isabel's condition troubled everyone. Not madness exactly, but something deeper, a nervous state that fascinated psychologists. I call it advanced hysteria, born from fear. "Fear of her husband," Meadows whispered. "The kind of fear that sparks seizures." Fox frowned at the holes in the wireless, but Elaine pressed Meadows to continue. "I confronted Septimus about her," Meadows admitted. 18 months ago, I told him the illness lived in her mind. He laughed, mocking her intelligence, dismissing my words. "But look here," Meadows shook himself. "I shouldn't discuss patients this way. Professional ethics. Nothing leaves this room unless absolutely necessary." Still, the truth weighed heavily on him. Finally, he retreated into silence, saying only that Septimus had high blood pressure and a weak heart. His children, however, suffered different battles under his rule. Guy worked at his father's city office. Arthur wished to be an artist, but was forced into law. Filippo longed for the stage, forbidden entirely. He bullied his children, Elaine concluded grimly. Find out for yourself. Meadows made for the door, hesitated, then turned back, lined with worry. He spoke again. I'll tell you this, he said. Last night, there was a violent quarrel. I'd asked young Hyslop, the clever boy, to alert me if trouble rose. He rang at 10:20, Meadows explained. Said there had been a fierce row, Septimus, shouting at Philippa Phipps, they call her, in her room. Isabel already retreated to bed. I was tired after a long day, Meadows confessed. I told Hyslop to wait half an hour to avoid Septimus and call again if storm continued. If I heard nothing, I'd assume quiet had returned everyone asleep. I did call later, no reply, so I retired to bed, restless nonetheless. That's all. Meadows ended, already moving toward the door. Curtis will find me if needed. You'll want me at the inquest, I suppose. Goodbye, gentlemen. He vanished quickly. Once gone, Elaine began prowling the room carefully, eyes sharp. Fox and Bailey remained hunched over the radio set, frowning their investigation, not yielding clear answers yet. I don't see how he could have been shocked, Fox muttered, annoyed. The knobs are fine, the controls in proper order. Still, something feels wrong. Look here, sir, he added, flicking the switch. The radio hummed loudly. A voice drifted out. Concludes the program of Christmas carols. Pleasant tone, Fox remarked softly. Suddenly, Bailey straightened. Found something, sir. Sawdust, perhaps. Elaine leaned, close torchlight cutting into the machine's shadows. Bailey's eyes widened. Yes, sawdust buried inside. What could this mean? Elaine crouched, brushing aside the dust, scooping up faint grains of sawdust hiding beneath the hose. First vantage, he muttered, eyes narrowing with sharp calculation. At the wall socket, he found a curious adapter, two-way feeding both radiator and radio. Illegal, suspicious, yet perfectly positioned. His instincts flared with unease. He examined the radio knobs, those ordinary fittings snugly fixed to steel shafts. Something felt off. He whispered, too neat, too precise. Wait, let's look closer. Pulling out a pocket lens, Elaine leaned in, his brow furrowed. Blotting paper wrapped here. Strange. Fox, do they ever use blotting paper? Never, Fox barked sharply. Elaine scraped at the shaft with his knife, catching fragments on an envelope. A torn corner revealed hidden traces, delicate and telling. No fingerprints on the set, Bailey grumbled. So either none at all or far too many. Elaine urged him, try anyway. Something always lingers, Bailey. Elaine paced slowly, eyes scanning the floorboards. At the window, he froze. Fox, a clue. Clear as daylight. See this? He pointed with quiet triumph. The curtain rod held more than fabric. Standing on a chair, Elaine twisted off its capped ends. Inside lay knobs identical to those from the radio. Minutes later, Inspector Fox rapped on the door. Guy Tonks opened pale but composed. The family huddled by the fire, silence weighing heavier than smoke. Do you need one of us? Asked Philippa quietly. Mr. Guy Tonks, if you please, replied Fox, formal yet steady. Guy rose without hesitation. At the study door, Guy hesitated. Is my father still there? No, sir. The room's quite orderly again, Fox reassured. Relief flickered in Guy's eyes. Inside, Elaine waited seated at the desk. Rising, he gestured politely. This must be a terrible shock. Please sit. Guy obeyed, distancing himself from the radio. What killed my father? Guy's voice cracked. Was it a stroke? Elaine spoke gently. Doctors cannot yet say. A post-mortem is required. Guy cursed in despair. An inquest, too. Guy's tone sharpened. Elaine nodded. Horror colored his words. Terrible. Why so mysterious? What ended his life, tell me? His voice echoed painfully. They suspect electrical shock, Elaine said calmly. Guy flinched. From the wireless? That's absurd. They're foolproof. Elaine's gaze lingered. True. If left untouched, but tampering alters everything. Relief seemed to wash over Guy. Yes, he was always tinkering with it. His body slackened, though fear still shadowed his pale, drawn features. Elaine pressed. What had he done? Guy hesitated. Nothing. If anyone interfered, it was corrected later. His lips trembled, words unsaid, leaving silence heavy in the air. So you see, Elaine continued, your father could not have altered it. Which means, perhaps it wasn't the radio at all that killed him. Suspicion deepened. Guy paled further, nearly white. Then how he whispered hoarsely. Elaine leaned forward. That is what the post-mortem must decide. The truth hides, but not for long. I don't understand radios, Guy blurted. Suddenly desperation breaking through his mask. His eyes darted nervously, betraying secrets buried beneath his carefully controlled exterior. I don't understand any of this, said Guy, frowning deeply. It makes no sense. Nobody ever touched the wireless set except my father, ever. He was incredibly particular about it. No one went near it without his permission, I see then. He truly was an enthusiast for his hobby alone. Yes, it was his sole passion apart from his business affairs. One of my men, he added thoughtfully, has some technical expertise regarding radios. Elaine leaned forward. He says this is a remarkably precise and cleverly constructed set. Not something just anyone could tamper with or understand, even partially. You're not an expert yourself, Guy said slowly. Is there anyone else in the house with knowledge of it, some interest in the mechanism at all? My younger brother dabbled in radios once, Guy explained, but he gave it up long ago. Father would never allow another set in the house at all. Perhaps he might shed some light, Elaine mused. Even if the radio appears intact now, we must explore every possible avenue to uncover the truth. You speak as if I were guilty or suspicious, Guy replied sharply. But no inquiry has taken place yet. There's been no inquest to conclude anything. Had anyone a grudge against your father? Elaine asked quietly, observing his expression for any flicker of hesitation or shame. Guy lifted his chin, meeting her gaze. Almost everyone who knew him, I'd say, Guy admitted firmly without exaggeration. He was an unpleasant man in many ways, relentless and difficult, some might even call cruel. Elaine's eyes narrowed. You think he was murdered, don't you? She said. Guy did not answer immediately, his thoughts tracing every interaction he remembered. Elaine pointed abruptly to the desk beside him. Have you ever seen these before? She asked, gesturing toward two small black knobs lying side by side. Guy's eyes followed her hand and he stared. No, he murmured. I've never seen them like this before. What are they exactly? I believe, Elaine said, voice calm but firm. They are the instruments, the very agents of your father's death. They played a role in the fatal event. Sure. At that moment, the study door opened, and Arthur Tons entered, looking curious and impatient. What's happening here? He demanded, tension in his voice. We can't stay cooped up all day, he added, quickly restless. I can't stand it. For heaven's sake, what exactly happened to him? Tell me. They think those things killed him, Guy said, indicating the knobs. Arthur glanced at them briefly, then his eyes flicked toward the curtain rods almost instinctively. What do you mean? He asked Elaine, his brow furrowed. How could those possibly be involved in Father's death? Elaine gestured toward the radio. Will you try fitting one of those knobs onto the exposed shaft of the volume control that may clarify matters? But, said Arthur, skeptical, they're metal and disconnected. Elaine nodded. They fit loosely, but if packed with blotting paper, they could conduct and interact with the wiring. Where did you find these things? Arthur demanded, frustration rising. I think you recognized them, didn't you? Your glance at the curtain rods gave it away. Of course, I recognized them, Elaine replied evenly. I painted Philipper against those curtains last year. I knew the knobs and rods intimately from the portrait work. Guy interrupted, impatient. Exactly. What are you driving at? Mr. Elaine, are you suggesting my brother could be involved in this mess somehow? Arthur protested. I don't see how it concerns me. Why would you imply I had anything to do with it? I'd nothing to do with those knobs. Elaine remained calm. It's the substitution, that's all. Metal knobs replaced the original baker-like ones. Remarkably similar, but subtly different. Examine them closely. The difference is faint. Arthur was silent, his eyes still fixed on the radio. I've always wanted to study this set, he admitted quietly. Now I can. But how could knobs like these have killed anyone? Both controls are grounded, Elaine said slowly. You notice the small, precise holes drilled through the panel. They could have carried a lead from the transformer to the knob and to Earth. Fox nodded. Yes, a carefully guided current. It seems improbable, but technically feasible. A clever, sinister device to give someone a fatal shock while appearing harmless. It's a job for an expert, Elaine said, her voice measured. He could generate around 300 volts that way, enough to be dangerous under certain conditions. That's not sufficient, Arthur interjected quickly, his brow furrowed. Only a few hundredths of an ampere, hardly enough current to inflict any real harm. It's negligible. I'm no electrical expert, Elaine admitted, calm but firm. But I am convinced your observation is technically correct. The holes, however, remain unexplained. Why were they drilled? What? Arthur gave a harsh, unpleasant screech of laughter, unsettling the room. Do you imagine someone wanted to play a practical joke on our father? A practical joke? Guy snapped his fingers sharply. Shut up, he said, voice cutting through the tension. After all, he's dead. Let's not speculate foolishly. It's almost too surreal to believe. Don't be a bloody fool, Elaine interjected. Pull yourself together. Can't you see the gravity of this situation? Someone believes this might be a homicide. Murdered, Arthur repeated, aghast, shaking his head. No, that's absurd. None of us possessed the nerve for anything like that. It's impossible. Stop frightening yourselves. Elaine raised her hand slightly, voice calm but authoritative. Wait a moment. Your brother is right to caution you. Consider carefully before you speak further. This could be serious. Guy exhaled quickly, relief evident in his tone. Thank you. That is extraordinarily decent of you, sir. It's appreciated. Arthur's, you must calm yourself and think rationally. Arthur's hands shook slightly. I was conditioned, he murmured. Told I would never paint properly if I defied him. That fear followed me for years. Look at Guy. He wasn't so vulnerable, Arthur continued. But like the rest of us, he eventually caved under pressure. We were trained to surrender to his will. Do you see? Elaine's eyes narrowed. I suggest you both listen carefully. I am going to ask several questions. You need not answer immediately, but it would be sensible to do so. I understand, Guy said quickly. No one except my father ever touched this radio. It was sacrosanct. No interference was allowed, not even remotely by any of us. Did any of you enter this room while the set was in use? Elaine asked, scanning their faces but measuring reactions carefully. Not unless Father permitted slight adjustments or changes to the program, Arthur admitted. Why? Elaine's gaze shifted to Guy, who was now glaring at his brother with restrained intensity. I want an accurate account of events in this house last night. Timing is critical. As far as medical opinion can tell, Elaine continued, your father died not less than 3 nor more than 8 hours before he was found. We must narrow this window. I saw him around 8:45. Guy began slowly recalling the evening. I was preparing to leave for a supper party at the Savoy. He was crossing the hall. Did you see him after that? Elaine pressed, turning to Arthur. No, I only heard him, Arthur replied. He was in the study with his clerk fussing over correspondence before Christmas. Quite enough, Elaine said. Your father discovered urgent letters as always. Guy, you know he was pathological about unfinished business. Dr. Meadows confirmed this, I believe. When did you hear him last? Elaine asked carefully. Sometime after I left, Arthur replied. I was working on a drawing in my room, which is directly above his study. I heard him bawling. It must have been before 10, Arthur continued. I left for a studio party at 10. Crossing the hall, I heard him yelling at Little Hyssop. The sounds were distinct. And when did you return? Elaine asked, eyes steady on them both. I came home around 12:20, said Guy, immediately trying to fix the timeline precisely. We had attended a performance of Shake Carlo with a midnight stunt. We left immediately afterward. I returned by taxi. The radio was blaring, but no voices were audible. And you, Arthur? Elaine inquired. Lord knows when I returned, he admitted uneasy. After 1 a.m., the house was dark and silent. There was no disturbance, no sound at all. You had your own key, Elaine continued. Yes, Guy replied. Each of us has one. They are always hung on hooks in the lobby. I noticed Arthur's key was missing upon my return. What about the others? Elaine asked, raising her eyebrows. How did you know it was your father and not someone else who had been using the set tonight? My mother hasn't got a key, Arthur replied quickly, voice edged with irony. And Phipps lost hers weeks ago. I knew it had to be father. Thank you, Arthur added, with a sarcastic tilt of his mouth. Your deduction skills are remarkable, he said, masking unease beneath irony and a strained laugh. You didn't check the study when you came in, Elaine inquired, eyes sharp, measuring his reaction carefully. Good Lord, no, Arthur exclaimed, as though the suggestion were absurd. I say, he continued, suddenly frowning, I suppose he could have been sitting here dead just behind the door in the darkness. A queer thought, he laughed nervously. How do you know it was dark? Elaine pressed. What do you mean by that? Arthur paused, then answered, Of course it was. There is no light under the door. Elaine turned her gaze toward the siblings. Now do you two mind rejoining your mother? Perhaps your sister can be persuaded to assist us here for a moment. Fox, ask her, will you? Elaine suggested. The officer nodded and returned to the drawing room with Guy and Arthur, maintaining his usual calm, unconscious of the tension. Bailey, the fingerprint expert, was already present, ostensibly examining the electric points with meticulous attention. Philippa, noticing the study, moved toward it at once. Her first words were typical of her temperament. Can I be of any help? She asked, poised yet casual. Showing curiosity without unnecessary emotion or hesitation. It's extremely considerate of you to put it like that, Elaine said warmly. I do not wish to worry you unduly. This discovery must have been a shock. Probably, Philippa replied, glancing at Elaine. I suppose I must be shocked, but strangely I cannot feel much. I just want it over quickly, then think. Elaine nodded, her expression serious. Please tell me what happened last night. We believe your father may have been electrocuted under unusual and puzzling circumstances. Philippa's eyes flickered briefly, calm but attentive. I don't think I'll be much help, she said evenly, but I shall answer your questions. Go ahead and ask. I wish to determine who was the last person to see or speak with your father. Elaine explained, her tone measured and precise, emphasizing importance of timing. I should think it was most likely myself, Philippa said composedly, voice steady. I had a disagreement with him before going to bed, nothing more than a brief quarrel. What about anyone else? Elaine asked, studying her expression. I do not see that it matters, Philippa replied quietly, her calm demeanor masking subtle tension beneath her words. Elaine considered this, then spoke with deliberation. Look here, she began. I think there is very little doubt your father suffered a fatal electric shock from his wireless. As far as I know, the circumstances are unique. Radios are normally incapable of delivering a lethal shock. The cabinet's internal arrangements were radically disturbed last night. Your father may have experimented with it, Elaine continued, or been interrupted, and in the excitement may have made some dangerous adjustments. But it is only speculation. You don't believe that, do you? Philippa asked calmly, eyes steady, voice composed despite the tension in the room, measuring the investigator's certainty carefully. Since you ask, Elaine replied carefully, no, I do not fully accept that explanation. There remains the possibility of deliberate tampering or foul play. Philippa's lips pressed tightly, color draining slightly. I see, she said crisply. You think he was murdered, but you are not certain. Naturally, you wish to inquire about the quarrel. Yes, Elaine replied. I want the full account of everything that occurred last evening, including your disagreement, and anyone present who might have witnessed it or interacted with him. What happened was this. Philippa began measured. I came into the hall sometime after 10. I saw that Arthur had gone out and checked the clock at 5 past. I encountered my father's secretary, Richard Hyssop, in the hall, she continued. He turned aside, but I glimpsed him. Impulsively, I blurted out, "You're crying," and we looked at each other. I asked him why he stayed on, she said, voice firm. None of the other secretaries could endure the situation. He explained that he had responsibilities, 2 children, and mounting doctor's bills. These burdens, she added quietly, and the ceaseless demands of my father's temper and cruelty explained his distressed state. He endured a servitude that was exhausting, oppressive, and relentless. "I think my father was mad," Philipper whispered, voice trembling slightly. "Truly mad. Richard confessed it all to me, higgledy-piggledy, in some horrified, hurried, whispered fashion. He's been here for 2 years," she continued, voice low, and I never realized until that instant the sort of man my father truly was. A faint flush colored her cheeks. "He's such a funny little man, really. Not the sort I expected, not handsome, not exciting, not inspiring in any way." She paused, looking bewildered. "Yes," Elaine prompted gently. "Go on." Philipper drew a deep breath. Suddenly I realized I was in love with him. Richard realized it too, he said. "Of course," she continued. "It was hopeless. Laughable almost. Then instinctively I put my arms around his neck and kissed him. Odd, but somehow natural. The trouble," she explained, "was my father coming into the hall at that precise moment. That was indeed bad luck for both Richard and me." Elaine nodded. "Yes, that was unfortunate." Philipper went on, cheeks still flushed. But father seemed almost delighted. His lips quivered as he surveyed Richard. He had been irritated long enough. "It was difficult," she said, "to find a pretext for being cruel, but he could not resist. He ordered Richard to the study and me to my room." "He followed me upstairs," she admitted. "Richard tried to come along, but I asked him not to. You can imagine the torrent of words my father unleashed. He put the worst construction possible on what he had witnessed," Philipper said. "He screamed like a madman. Perhaps it was his usual DTS, or perhaps he was truly insane. I know it seems foolish," she added, "to recount all this, but your understanding is necessary." Elaine interjected, "No, tell me everything. I can bear it. I feel nothing, not even relief." "The boys," she continued, "are frankly relieved now. I feel no fear. We've all been conditioned, yet I wonder, am I really innocent? Innocent people need not fear." "That's an axiom of police investigation," Elaine replied, studying Philipper. "But it cannot be murder. None of us had the courage to kill father. He would have won somehow." Philipper put her hands over her eyes, trembling. "I'm all muddled," she admitted. "I think I am more upset than I realize, but I will try to explain clearly." "Your father made this scene in your room," Elaine said carefully. "You mentioned he screamed. Did anyone hear him?" "Yes," Philipper whispered. "Mother did. She came in." "What happened?" Elaine asked. I said, "Go away, darling, it's all right." I did not want her to be involved. He nearly killed her with his rage. "Sometimes she faltered. "We never knew exactly what happened between them. It was secret, like a door quietly closing as one walks along a dark corridor." "Did she go away immediately?" Elaine pressed. "Not at once. He told her he had discovered Richard and me were lovers. He said, 'It doesn't matter, I won't tell you.' She was terrified." "He was attacking her in a way I could not comprehend," Philipper continued. "Then suddenly he told her to go to her own room. She obeyed, and he followed." "He locked me in," she said quietly. "That's the last I saw of him, though I heard him move downstairs later. I was trapped in my room all night." "Were you locked in the entire night?" Elaine asked. "Not entirely. Richard's room is next to mine. He spoke to me through the wall. He wanted to unlock my door." "But I refused," she explained, in case father returned. "Much later, Guy came home. I tapped on the door. The key was in the lock and he turned it." "Did you explain what had happened to him?" Elaine asked. "Just that there had been a row," Philippa replied. He stayed only a moment. The wireless was faintly audible from my room. Did you hear it after Father returned to the study? Elaine asked, her pen poised. I don't remember clearly, Philippa admitted. I was awake so long waiting for my brother to return. When he discovered Richard and me, she whispered, things had already begun to unravel. They'd been working, you see. That's when everything became confused, frightening, inevitable. No, I can't remember hearing it at all, Philippa admitted, frowning. Wait a moment. Yes, after he returned to the study from Mother's room, there was a loud crash of static. Very loud, she continued, voice trembling slightly. And then for some time it seemed quiet. Later, I fancy I heard it again faintly, but I'm not certain. Oh, I've remembered something else, she said, brightening. After the static, my bedside radiator went out. I suppose something was wrong with the electricity supply. That would account for both, wouldn't it? Elaine prompted gently. Yes, Philippa admitted. The heater resumed operation about 10 minutes later. Did the radio begin again, then do you think? I don't know, she said faintly. I'm very vague about the timing. I believe it started again sometime before I went to sleep, but it's uncertain. Thank you very much indeed, Elaine said, noting the details carefully. I won't bother you any longer. All right, Philippa replied calmly, and left the room without further comment. Elaine sent for Chase, next questioning him about the rest of the staff and the precise discovery of Mr. Tunz's body. Emily was summoned and dealt with firmly. When she departed, truculent but compliant, Elaine turned to the butler. Chase, she began, did your master have any peculiar habits, sir? Yes, ma'am, he said carefully. In regard to the wireless, I beg pardon, sir. I thought you meant habits generally. Well then, generally speaking, Elaine prompted, if you may say so. Well, sir, Chase muttered, he was a mass of peculiarities. How long have you been with him? 2 months, sir, and due to leave at the end of the week. Elaine raised an eyebrow. Oh, why are you leaving? Chase produced the classic remark of his kind. There are some things, sir, he said gravely, that flesh and blood will not stand. One of them is being spoken to as Mr. Tunz spoke to his staff. Ah, his peculiar habits. In fact, he added quietly, in my opinion, sir, he was mad. Stark staring madness. Regarding the radio, Elaine prompted, did he tinker with it often? I can't say I ever noticed, sir. I believe he knew quite a lot about wireless, though. When he tuned the set, she asked, did he have any particular method characteristic attitude or gesture? I don't think so, sir, Chase replied. I never noticed yet. I often came into the room while he worked. I can seem to see him now, sir, Chase murmured. Yes, yes, Elaine agreed, briskly. That's what we want, a clear mental picture. How was it? You're like this, Chase said. In a moment, he mimicked crossing the room and sitting in Septimus's chair. He swung to the cabinet, raising his right hand to the tuning control. Like this, Elaine prompted. No, sir, Chase said quickly. That's not him at all. Both hands it should be. He gestured to the volume control. Elaine lifted her left hand, demonstrating. More like this. Yes, sir, Chase said slowly. But there's something else. Something he was always doing. It lingers in my mind just at the edge of memory. Oh, I know, Elaine said, leaning forward. A kind of tic or something to do with irritation. Chase hesitated. Irritation, sir, no. It's no good. I can't recall just now. Perhaps later. Now look here, Chase, Elaine pressed. What happened to all of you last night, the servants, I mean? We were all out, sir. It's Christmas Eve. The mistress sent for me yesterday morning, Chase explained, saying we could take the evening off once I'd taken in Mr. Tunz's grog tray at 9. So we went. When the rest of the staff got away about 9 o'clock, I left at 10, sir, and returned about 11:30. The others were back then all in bed. I went straight to bed myself. Sir, you came in by a back door, I suppose? Elaine asked. Yes, sir. We've been talking it over. None of us noticed anything unusual. Can you hear the wireless in your part of the house? No, sir, Chase replied. Elaine nodded, looking up from her notes. That will do. Thank you. Before Chase reached the door, Fox entered the room abruptly. Beg pardon, sir, Fox said hurriedly. "I just want to take a look at the radio times on the desk." He bent over the paper, wetted a gigantic thumb, and turned the page. "That's it, sir," Chase exclaimed suddenly. "That's what I tried to think of. That's what he was always doing." But what?" Elaine asked. "Licking his fingers, sir," Chase said firmly. "It was a habit. Whenever he sat at the radio, he'd lick his fingers first. Mr. His told the doctor it nearly drove him demented." "Quite so," Elaine agreed. "In about 10 minutes, ask Mr. Hyssop if he will come in. That will be all, thank you, Chase." "Well, sir," remarked Fox when Chase departed, "if that's correct, it makes matters far worse." "Good heavens, Fox! What do you mean?" Elaine demanded. "If metal knobs were substituted for the Baker-Ikey ones and fine wires passed through the drilled holes, he'd get a bigger shock if he tuned in with damp fingers. And he always used both hands." "Fox, approach the tonsils again, please," Elaine instructed. "You haven't left them alone." "Bailey's in there pretending interest in the light switches. He's found the main switchboard under the stairs. There are signs of a recently fixed blown fuse. Odd lengths of flex same brand as on the radio and heater are in a cupboard below." "Ah, yes," Elaine said, considering. "Could the cord from the adapter to the radiator have been involved?" "By gum," Fox said, eyes widening. "You're right. That's how it was done. The heavier flex was cut away from the radiator and shoved through. There was a fire, so he wouldn't touch the radiator or notice it. It could have been done that way, certainly, though there's little proof." "Return to the bereaved tonsils," Elaine instructed. "Ask politely if they remember Septimus's peculiarities when tuning the radio." Fox met little Mr. Hyssop at the door, leaving him alone with Elaine. Philipper had been right, Elaine reflected. Richard Hyssop was nondescript. Gray eyes, drab hair, pale short, unremarkable. Yet last night, something had sparked between them, a sudden, romantic realization. "Do sit down," Elaine said gently. "I want you to tell me what happened last evening with Mr. Tonks." "What happened?" Hyssop asked quietly. "Yes, you all dined at 8, I understand. Then you and Mr. Tons came in here. What did you do?" "He dictated letters," Hyssop said. "Anything unusual? Did anything happen?" Oh, no," he added quickly. "We didn't quarrel, sir. Perhaps that's the wrong word. Miss Philipper told you what upset me. Yes, she was wise to do so." "What exactly, Mr. Hyssop?" Elaine pressed. "Apart from that, Mr. Tons was difficult to please. I often irritated him, last night included. He shouted at me. I was startled, nervous, clumsy, with papers making mistakes. I blundered, then broke down. I've always irritated him." "And did he have any irritating mannerisms himself?" Elaine asked. Hyssop paused. I can't think of any particular ones." "Does it matter?" "Anything to do with the radio, for instance?" Elaine prodded. After a short silence, Hyssop said no. "Was the radio on here last night after dinner?" Elaine asked. "For a little while," Hyssop admitted. "Not after the incident in the hall, at least, I don't think. I don't remember exactly." "What did you do after Miss Philipper and her father went upstairs?" Elaine asked. "I followed and listened outside the door for a moment," Hyssop said quietly. He looked pale, almost ghostly, and stepped back from the desk. Then he heard footsteps approaching. He remembered Dr. Meadows' instructions about calling in case of trouble. He went back and phoned Dr. Meadows. The doctor told him to stay quietly in his room. Only call again if the situation worsened suddenly. Otherwise, he was to remain in his room, which was right next to hers. He followed the instructions carefully, hoping to avoid any disturbance. "Could you hear what Mr. Tons said to her?" "Yes," he said quietly. He spoke sharply. "I heard insults aimed at her." Mrs. Tons was nearby, anxious. He considered calling Dr. Meadows again, but at that moment she and Mr. Tons emerged and walked down the passage. He stayed in his room, silent. He did not speak directly to Philipper, only through the wall. She asked him not to call Dr. Meadows and to wait quietly for a while. Perhaps 20 minutes passed in silence. Eventually, he heard Mr. Tons go downstairs. He again whispered to Philipper, who urged him to remain patient until morning. Finally, he went to bed exhausted. He heard the radio faintly again, mostly static. nothing else. His mind was filled with unease and tension. "Are you skilled with radios?" Elaine asked. "Only basic knowledge," he admitted. "And how did you get this job?" "I answered an advertisement," he replied. "You don't recall any special habits of Mr. Ton's with the radio, no. And nothing more about the study incident that caused the earlier hall scene, no. Will you ask Mrs. Tons to speak with me?" Elaine requested. "Certainly," Hyssop replied. Septimus's wife entered frail and pale, her expression exhausted and frightened. Elaine helped her sit and gently asked about the previous evening. She explained feeling unwell and going straight to bed, but she heard Septimus yelling at Philipper. He had accused Philipper and the secretary of terrible things. She got that far before breaking down quietly. Elaine comforted her, speaking softly and patiently. She revealed that Septimus came into her room continuing to shout harshly. "What did he say?" asked Elaine. "He wasn't in control of himself," Isabel admitted shakily. "He seemed unaware of what he said. Perhaps he had been drinking," she explained. "He stayed about 15 minutes, then abruptly left. She heard him pass Philippe's door. After that, he presumably went downstairs. She stayed awake for hours. From her room, she couldn't hear the wireless. Elaine showed her the curtain knobs, but she seemed confused. Once she left, Elaine called Fox and recapped the entire case. "What do you make of it?" he asked. "The young men appear to have solid alibis. For now," Elaine said, "let's assume Guy and Arthur are accounted for. Then we examine the remaining people, Philipper the older lady, the secretary, and the staff. First," Elaine continued, "we need to review the wireless setup. Watch closely. This is likely the only way the radio could have delivered the fatal shock. The control knobs had been removed. Small holes drilled in the panel. Metal replacements were packed with blotting paper to insulate them from the shafts. Heavier wires from the radiator adapter were cut. The ends were threaded through the drilled holes contacting the new knobs. This created positive and negative poles. Mr. Tonks bridged the gap. A powerful current passed through him to the earth. The switchboard fuse blew immediately. Everything was carefully rigged by the murderer. The setup happened while Septimus was upstairs arguing with his wife and daughter. The study was revisited around 10:20. The whole scheme took place after Arthur left. The murderer returned around 10:45. The radiator was connected, wires restored, and knobs replaced. The radio was left tuned, ready to deliver a fatal shock. Philipper and Hyssop's description of static bursts corresponds to the short circuit that killed Septimus. All the heaters in the house were affected similarly. The murderer reset Tonks's radiator, ensuring it seemed normal. Anyone with skill could manage it. Fixing the main switchboard fuse would complete the deception. "How long would it take to reset everything?" Fox asked. 15 minutes, perhaps, Elaine replied. "You'd need to work quickly and efficiently." Fox mused. "I doubt a woman could manage all this." Elaine stayed silent, deep in thought, calculating how the sequence of events aligned. "Why did Mr. Hyssop lie about Septimus licking his thumbs?" Fox asked. "He claimed to remember nothing, but Chase said it drove him nearly insane." Elaine paused, then nodded. "Yes, it must be addressed. He dialed Dr. Meadows from the directory. May I speak to Dr. Meadows, please?" "Remember Mr. Hyssop mentioning that the master's habits nearly drove him crazy?" Elaine asked. "He called at 10:20. You received a call at 11:00, correct?" "Yes, I'll come over if I can," Dr. Meadows replied, hanging up. Elaine then asked Fox to bring Chase again. Chase confirmed that Mr. Hyssop, feverish and excited, had ranted about the master driving him mad. He threatened something desperate, but rambled incoherently, Chase said. "I doubt he remembers much," Elaine commented. "Likely true," Fox agreed. "Go check the boys' alibis and verify Philipper's statement about being locked in her room." While Fox was gone, Elaine continued reviewing notes. Suddenly, the study door burst open, and Dr. Meadows stormed in, shouting, "Look here, my giddy sleuth-hound." "What's all this about?" Mr. Hyssop Meadows demanded. "Who says he disliked Septimus's abominable habits?" "Chase does," Elaine explained, trying to calm the excitable doctor. "So am I blast you?" "What exactly are you implying?" Elaine demanded, voice firm but weary. "Do you seriously believe that a fragile, timid man like Hyssop could ever intentionally electrocute anyone, even Septimus. Elaine exhaled, slowly rubbing his temples. I have no imagination left for fanciful possibilities, he said. I almost regret having called you in Dr. Meadows. If the wireless caused Septimover's death, it was through his own meddling. And he restored it afterward, unknowingly leaving the setup lethal. Dr. Meadows stared at him, unmoving, silent. Elaine pressed on, eyes steady. Tell me honestly, while Hyssop was semi-delirious, did he indicate that Septimus's habits drove him to thoughts of violence or murder? Dr. Meadows's face tightened. I'd forgotten that Chase was present, he admitted. Even if Hyssop spoke wildly under fever, what consequence does that hold? One cannot accuse a man based solely on delirious utterances. I have no intention of doing so, Elaine said calmly. But another piece of the puzzle has emerged, something that cannot be ignored. You mean something involving Philipper last night? Dr. Meadows asked, frowning. Elaine nodded gravely. She whispered something to me this morning, information that combined with other facts makes the situation far more serious. Dr. Meadows leaned back, uneasy. Are you sure of your grounds? He asked quietly. I'm convinced, Elaine replied. It is serious enough that you should leave for now. My duty demands thorough investigation. After a moment, Dr. Meadows nodded. Yes, you must do your job. Goodbye, he said quietly, accepting the weight of Elaine's determination. Shortly afterward, Fox returned with news. Guy and Arthur had remained at their respective parties the entire evening. Two friends corroborated their alibis, confirming their presence far from the house. It's a process of elimination, Fox explained. That leaves only the secretary Hyssop. He could have prepared the radio while Septimus was occupied upstairs unnoticed. Elaine added, he must have waited somewhere nearby, quietly observing, perhaps whispering through the door to Miss Tonks. Once Septimus was fatally shocked, Hyssop likely restored the radio, leaving it powered and seemingly normal. Fox glanced around the room. What should we do next, Sexcertar? Elaine directed him toward the key hook inside the entrance hall. 2 keys hung there, perfectly visible, marking the routine of household comings and goings. Back in the study, Hyssop was seated with Bailey quietly examining notes. Elaine explained Philipper had remained locked in her room all night, only released when her brother returned after midnight. That was far too late, Elaine continued. Septimus was already dead. The crash of static reported by Philipper precisely marks the moment of his death. Elaine turned to Hyssop. Why didn't you mention earlier how much his habit of licking his thumbs infuriated you? Hyssop hesitated, lips trembling, struggling with the weight of confession. It's true, he admitted finally. For 2 years he tormented me. He knew about a small sum I once took from the desk's cash box while my wife was dying, and from that day onward, he held absolute power over me. He would sit there like a spider, watching its prey. Hyssop continued, voice tight. Click, click, wetting his thumbs before touching the papers, a grimace of satisfaction on his face. He knew it drove me mad, and he did it deliberately. He'd hint at the cash, never accusing outright, and I was powerless to resist. I am not insane, Hyssop said, shaking his head. I never harmed him, though I often imagined what I might do in my frustration. It was just fantasy, a joke in my own mind. I never acted on it. I hadn't dared act. Last night, when Philipper showed me she truly cared, it felt almost celestial. A moment of relief so intense that for the first time I felt no murderous impulse. Yet last night, someone else acted. I stood there, shaking, a storm of emotion surging through me. Fox and Bailey observed with obvious concern, bewildered at the intensity, exchanging glances, before turning to Elaine. Elaine, poised, was about to question him further when Chase entered carrying a small envelope. "Note for you, sir," he said, handing it over with a measured tone. Elaine accepted it, scanning the first few lines. Glancing up, he addressed Hyssop quietly. "You may leave now. I have exactly what I anticipated the confirmation I needed." Hyssop nodded and departed, leaving the room tense and expectant. Elaine unfolded the letter and read aloud, eyes narrowing with each line. The words revealed a shocking confession, written in haste, but with deliberate clarity exposing the orchestration of the night's events. "Dear Elaine," it began, "do not arrest Aesop. I am the one responsible. Release him if you've taken any action, and do not tell Philipper that suspicion ever touched him. I was in love with Isabel long before she met Septimus," the letter continued. "I tried to convince her to divorce him, but she refused, concerned for her child's welfare. There was no time for discussion. I had to act." He explained he had observed the household, noting when keys were removed from the hook by Philipper. He had prepared tools, flex and wire, anticipating a window of opportunity during the New Year break. But the timing changed. When Aesop called to report the household quiet and Philipper locked in her room, he made an immediate decision. The path was clear. No one else would interfere. He described entering the study quietly, verifying that all upstairs was silent and recognizing the radio still powered on. He recounted using the drawing room as a waiting point, observing Septimus descend from Isabel's room, heading directly to the set. Anticipating complications, he locked himself in, carefully manipulating the radio and repairing the main switchboard fuse. He ensured everything appeared normal, leaving the room as if Septimus had merely resumed routine tuning. The letter revealed the cold precision of his plan. He had intended to cover the act, suggesting a natural death. Only the burned hand and Chase's alarm about electrocution forced him to reconsider exposure to suspicion. He concluded with a somber farewell. "I enclosed a note for Isabel, who will never forgive me, and one for you, Elaine. I am using cyanide. It is swift. I apologize. You must understand I could not leave the truth unrecorded." The signature closed the letter, "Henry Meadows." Elaine held it in silence, the weight of revelation settling heavily, the intricate web of events finally made clear. And so the mystery is finally solved, all the pieces falling perfectly into place. If you enjoyed this thrilling story and want to see more, don't forget to share this video with your friends and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another gripping tale. Thank you for watching and joining us on this journey.